They were surrounded, outnumbered, and trapped deep in enemy territory. Retreat meant annihilation. Surrender meant humiliation. And yet, the Roman legion did what it had done time and again across centuries of war. It advanced. Rome did not conquer the ancient world because it had the largest armies. It conquered because, when everything went wrong, its legions refused to break. One of the greatest examples came in Gaul, in 52 BC, at a hilltop fortress called Alesia. Julius Caesar had pursued the Gallic leader Vercingetorix across France, finally cornering him with roughly 50,000 Roman troops. Inside Alesia were more than 80,000 Gauls. Any normal commander would have waited for reinforcements or withdrawn. Caesar did neither. Instead, the Roman legions built a wall. Not one wall, but two. One facing inward to trap the enemy, and another facing outward to defend against relief forces. Miles of fortifications rose from the ground. Trenches, wooden towers, sharpened stakes, all built under constant threat of attack. When a massive Gallic relief army arrived, estimates ranging from 200,000 to over 250,000 warriors. The Romans were now outnumbered nearly 4-1. The Gauls attacked from both sides at once. Roman soldiers fought with their backs to fortifications they had built themselves, holding narrow killing zones as wave after wave crashed against them. For days, the legionaries endured exhaustion, hunger, and relentless combat. At the breaking point, Caesar committed his last reserves. The Roman cavalry charged. The Gauls broke. Vercingetorix surrendered. Gaul was lost, not because Rome had more men, but because its legions would not yield. But Alesia was not an exception. It was a pattern. More than a century earlier, in 168 BC, Roman legions faced the Macedonian army at the Battle of Pydna. Macedonia fielded the feared phalanx, bristling with long spears, a formation that had crushed enemies for generations. The Romans were fewer in number and faced a force that, on open ground, should have destroyed them. At first, the Macedonian phalanx advanced flawlessly. Roman lines were pushed back, shields buckling under the pressure of pikes. For a moment, defeat seemed inevitable. But then the terrain intervened. The ground beneath the phalanx became uneven. Gaps opened, and the Roman legion adapted. Individual Roman units flowed into the openings, abandoning rigid formations for flexible combat. Short swords replaced long spears. Close quarters fighting shattered the phalanx's cohesion. What had once been an unstoppable wall collapsed into chaos. By the end of the day, Macedonia's army was annihilated, and Rome became the dominant power of the Greek world. The Roman legion had done what it always did. It survived long enough to learn, and then it destroyed its enemy. Sometimes, the odds were even worse. In 9 AD, Rome suffered one of its most catastrophic defeats in the Teutoburg forest. 3 entire legions were ambushed and wiped out by Germanic tribes. It was a disaster so severe that Rome never again attempted to conquer Germania. But what followed revealed Rome's true strength. In the years after the ambush, Roman legions returned, not recklessly, but methodically. They marched into hostile forests, built forts every night, and refused to be lured into traps. Germanic warriors attacked from the shadows, using terrain and surprise, but the Roman formation held. Shields locked, lines maintained. Each step forward was deliberate. At battles like Idis de Viso, Roman legions fought enemies who knew every tree and hill. They were outnumbered, harassed, and surrounded by hostile land. Yet the legions advanced in disciplined waves, grinding down resistance until the Germanic forces broke. Rome did not reclaim the lost territory, but it reclaimed its honor, and proved that even devastating defeat could not destroy the legion. Against nature itself, the legion also prevailed. In Hispania, Roman forces faced guerrilla warfare from tribes who refused open battle. Roman soldiers marched through mountains, scorching heat and supply shortages. Ambushes were constant. Morale was tested daily. Many armies would have collapsed under the strain. Instead, the legions built roads through the wilderness, forts on impossible terrain, and supply lines where none had existed. The enemy struck fast and vanished. The Romans stayed. Slowly, relentlessly, they tightened their grip. Victory did not come in a single battle, but through endurance. The legion did not need glory, it needed time. And then there were moments when survival itself was uncertain. In 60 AD, during the rebellion of Boudica in Britain, a Roman force of barely 10,000 men faced a rebel army possibly 10 times its size. The rebels had already destroyed Roman cities and massacred tens of thousands. Confidence was on their side. Fear was not. The Roman commander chose the battlefield carefully, a narrow defile that prevented encirclement. When the Britons attacked, their numbers counted for nothing. Roman discipline turned the battlefield into a slaughter. Shield walls held. Javelins tore into charging ranks. When the Romans advanced, the rebel army collapsed into panic. What should have been Rome's destruction became one of its most lopsided victories. Again, the pattern held. The Roman legion was not invincible. It bled, and it broke. It suffered disasters that echoed across history. But it learned faster than its enemies. It adapted under pressure. And above all, it endured. While other armies relied on heroic charges or individual brilliance, Rome relied on systems. Every soldier knew his place. Every unit could function even when commanders fell. Fear was expected, but discipline was mandatory. This is why the Roman legion conquered against all odds. Not because its soldiers were fearless, but because they were trained to stand when fear demanded flight. Not because Rome never lost, but because it refused to stay defeated. The legion was not an army of heroes. It was something far more dangerous. It was a machine. And when that machine marched forward, outnumbered, surrounded, exhausted, the ancient world learned a brutal truth. Against the Roman legion, even impossible odds were not enough. The Roman legion did not conquer the ancient world because its soldiers were fearless. They conquered because fear was expected, and discipline overcame it. Again and again, outnumbered, surrounded, and battered by defeat, the legion endured. When generals fell, the formation held. When enemies pressed in, the line did not break. Rome's greatest weapon was never the sword or the shield. It was a system that turned ordinary men into an unstoppable force. A machine that learned from loss, adapted under pressure, and refused to surrender to history. Empires rose and fell, but the legacy of the Roman legion still stands as proof that organization, discipline, and resilience can conquer even the longest odds. If you enjoyed this story of ancient warfare and unbreakable discipline, make sure to like this video. It helps more history fans discover these forgotten battles. Subscribe to the channel for more epic stories of empires, warriors, and moments that changed the course of history.